Okay, so we're talking about the overall landscape of the services and architecture that are available in Azure first, and then after that we will go through each and details in here. So first, let me resume with the last week content first, so that you can have the remind about what is important for before we start on the Azure services. Oh, wait. Oh, there's one more. Hello, Sami. How do you do?
Hi, John.
Yes.
Hi, Muhammad. I'm fine. How about you?
Oh, I'm good also. We just start with the session, so you are just on time. So, have you been
Okay.
here in the past session?
Uh, I don't remember exactly. Maybe it's a long time because I said it's a little bit early, so this one is just good for me.
Ah, okay. No worry. I just want to make sure that you know where the materials and the resources are. So if it is your first session, then remember to go to my repo in here and select Azure Training and select this certificate, which is the one that we are working on. And in the past weeks, we have been going through like some of the basic foundation of the data engineer knowledge. So I'll go over it a little bit. So guys, remember this knowledge because it's very, very important when we move to the Azure platform because we will be asked on like how to select different tools in different scenario. So I just want to briefly remind you guys, ETL versus ELT, OLTP versus OLAP, and structure versus unstructured data, row and column based, and different fundamental online Spark, sharding, partitioning. So what I have done this week for everyone is that I read the material on the DB200, the official guideline, and I summarize it into a table. So if you go on here, okay, let me uh, let me go on here and show you guys the post. Okay, so this is the skill breakdown, and basically I went and read the skills description in the Microsoft Learning. Microsoft, hang on, let me show you here. So I went through this skill measure in Microsoft Learn here, and I see that there's two main components. One is you need to know about like theory knowledge. I call it architecture, but it's more like on theory knowledge, like what is data distribution, partition, consistency model, and the purpose of these theories is that you will need to implementing it in the real in the scenario. They will give you like scenario format. So that is one type of question. Another type that is step knowledge, and Harris, you attended the session the sharing from Sid, and you must have heard me asking him this question. So what step knowledge is that basically in the exam they will ask you like, for example, if you want to like monitor log analytics, like what steps do you need to go to like get to the log analytics level, or like for example like provisioning technique, like what steps you will have to select first. So all of these you need to like be able to like like which step is the first one and which step is the second, and follow like that. So so you need to like know how to create, how to develop, how you provisioning and configures. So any questions, I mean any keywords like this, like any verb like this, and I'll put this in these categories. So basically if they ask you like how to create a database, then you need to be able to like first go to the resource, like create a services, and then select the service, something like that. So those are the two categories I break down, and I hope that it will help you guys in the making a checklist for this exam. So move on that. So remember the post is DP 200 skill breakdown on training tech. So for that, let's go to the landscape first. You guys got the resource, all right, right?
Yeah, could you just send your GitHub in the chat or show it in the...
Sure. So this could be the one. We go to the chat and share it with you guys.
How much does it take to prepare the DP 200
Well,
time?
from the past sharing session, it would be around 1 or 2 months. Consider that if you have like 2 hours a day to work on it, then it will be 1 month. And if you just have like 1 hour to work on it, it will be 2 months. The good thing is that the DP 200 and the DP 201 is very similar to one another. So I'll show you this. I'll show you this forum. You can go on there. You can see what other people opinion. I hope you guys all in this group already. It's a very fantastic resource. So from this forum, I have I have been checking with people, and most of them said that in order to study for this is about 2 months, and then also this DP200 and DP201 is very similar to one another. So you can like pass one at one day and then pass another one in 2-3 days later. So it's a good advantage of that. So please join this forum and you will see a lot of people's story on these exams. Oh, I hear my voice resonate. Oh, I guys unmute. Okay. So another key area that today the speaker was talking about is also he also recommend this course. So if you guys have time, you can check it out. I already got a course, so I'll use also some of materials here to help you guys with the exam also. So this is also the course that the today's speaker recommend on the test. So let me also post it to you guys. But don't worry, I'll also like check on that. I already purchased the course and I'll use some of that for the class also. So if you guys can purchase it, it's all right. No mandatory. Okay, so that is for the some of the details of the exam. So today let's move to the Azure architectures and let's talk about some of the services and the storage that are available. And then we will break down it into like, first we need to learn how to ingest the data. And first we need to know about what is available for the storage. Then we will learn about how to ingest the data and then how to transform the data and make use of the data in the platform. So before that, I want you to bring attention to this page. It's about big data architecture. And the reason I like it because they have a lot of components in the lambda architecture, and it shows what's available in the platform. So I'll send you guys this link. And even though today speaker, he said that the architecture part is removed from the exam, I'll just use them as the material because I really believe on the starting point from the architecture so that you guys can see the big pictures, and then later on I will go back to the points in here and you guys could understand more of the small parts that component to the big pictures. So I hope you guys open the link all right. So basically in cloud in cloud data architecture platform, there's two things that you need to remember. It's about how to process batch processing data and real-time streaming processing data. So those are the two components. And you can see here is the big data architecture. Normally, you would take the data from the data source, you get it into the storage. And if it's a batch processing and if it's in real time, of course, you don't want to store it in storage because it loses the point of the real time, right? So you want to process the message instantly. So you go through like real-time message ingestion. Ingestion is like where you ingest the data, where you get the data in use. And there are several platforms on several tools that are available on the market right now. If you guys have heard, like Nifi and also Airflow. But in the Microsoft platform on Azure platform, we use like Azure Data Factory, for example. So it's a drag and drop interface to help us digest the data. So let me write to you guys some of the one that we have already. So and if any of the names I say too fast, then feel free to interrupt me so that I can type it to you guys. So we have Azure Data Factory, if on-prem and on the other platform, and we can get a server, then we can use Nifi or Airflow on this. And I'll go through like how to ingest data in each of the data storage later on. But let's talk about the architecture first, because you guys can go back and see this and see the big picture better. So in here you have the orchestration. So you must have heard a lot about data pipeline, and you're wondering what is the data pipeline. So basically, it's just a tool to orchestrate the process of ELT. So remember when I said last time we have ETL and ELT, right? So on cloud, it's more of ELT. So what is it? You extract, you load, and then you transform, and then orchestration tools are the one that help you with all the ELT process on the data platform. So in that, I want to bring you to the attention of two main architecture. When you work with a large data set is the lambda architecture and the kappa architecture. So the kappa architecture was proposed recently only in 2014 by this guy, Jay Krebs, which is the CEO of the Confluent now. And there's a lot of debate about like whether using kappa or lambda and what is the advantage of one of the other. But today we won't discuss about it. We will just see on lambda architecture because it's clear in the architecture picture. So how do I know this is a lambda architecture? Because you can see that it's separate into two different processing lines, which is the hot path and the cold path. So what is the hot path? Hot path is this path, is where the data is really moving and really quick move and fast pace moving, where you like real time processing it. And what is cold path is that the data is, you don't need it to be real time. So you can do batch processing with it. So that's what is called lambda. So let me show you the lambda symbol. So it's a Greek symbol. So you can see here, you have like two separate legs and it, right? So that's why it's the architect is called lambda, because you have like the hot path and the cold path, and then they merge together in the data lake. And then you can, after that, you can use this query from this data lake, select the data from the data lake to do transformation on it. So going back to our architecture, we have the hot path that we will do ingestion through Event Hub, which is the IoT service from Azure, and we will have IoT Hub, which is also another IoT service from Azure. And you won't need to know like exactly what is the difference between the two of these, because there's another certificate on IoT which is really going to emphasize on this. You just need to know that these are the architecture of stream ingestion, and from there we will need to load the data from the stream to a data lake storage or some kind of storage to keep our data. So that is that for the hot path. And for the cold path, what is this? Is a batch processing. So you need like Azure Data Factory. You need tools to like store your. You need tools to like store your data. And then this is the load path, right? You load the data into the. Well, sorry, this is the extract path. Remember, we have ELT. So we have the extract path here, where we have the hot and cold path to extract the data from the devices or the storage on premise, and then you load is where you load it into the Azure Lake storage or some type of other storage. It's just one of the example. There's many options. That's just one of the example of the architecture. And then what you do with the data, and again you have the transformation path, where there's two transformation steps. Number one is that where you query the data, where you like see what is going on, and there's like streaming high. Oh, let me zoom it in for you guys. Okay, can you guys see it better? So you have things like Azure Data Explorer, where you like low latency, you can analyze big data with a time series, or you have like advanced analytics, where you have Databricks that you can query and analyzing on the big data. And remember, Databricks is used for big data only. You don't need to use Databricks on like small data, right? And you have Azure Synapse Analytics, where you like have the real-time streaming of transform model. And you can build that in the build data warehouse. And then after you query and after you see the data, what you want is you want to visualize the data. So there's tools. Oh, hang on. I have questions. Oh, hi, Ali. Great to see you guys. Oh, wow. So many people attend. I'm so glad. Okay, so Ali, we are talking about DB200, and there's two parts in this. One is the overall data engineer part, and we are going deep into the Azure part now. So if you want to catch up with us, I would recommend you to go. Oh, I don't know how to end. I would recommend you to go to this link to catch up with the Azure to the non-Azure data engineer general knowledge. So let's go back on this. So these are the service we have for the transform part of data, but it is in visualization. So you can use ADX, you know, the Azure Data Explorer. You can use Power BI, which is a stack of Microsoft, where you can visualize the data throughout for the companies. And you can use Grafana, which is very good for real-time time series query and time series display. So that is the overview of big data architecture on Azure. Of course, if you Google, there will be like different components where you have like Polybase and other architecture. But this is the very simple and most basic one. So let me show you some of the other one that we have, so that you can see like what services available. And of course, what I'm doing is I'm also gonna create a cheat sheet where you can like have different service name and what it does and the component and the source. I'll finish it within the next week, so that you guys also can have the materials. And also what I'll do is I'll create like tool, which is storage tool, and what type, whether it's belong to data ingestion. So remember the ETL, whether it belong to the E or the L or a T, and what is used for like analytics or for ingestion, example like that. So there will be more available materials for study next week on the different service on Azure. And I'll have to tell you upfront, there's a lot of it. When you look at my exam guideline, here you can see that like there's not only 9 area, right? But in each area there are things like API, there are things like different integration with security, Azure Monitor, Azure Log Analytics. So these are the main area that they're gonna test on. But then also the question arises how you integrate with other services on Azure platform. So there will be more than 9 areas, but the main focus is these 9 areas and how you implement them with one another. So hang on, let me just quickly plug my computer in. A little bit on lower on the power. So just give me a second. Okay, so this is another architecture. You can see that there's unstructured and structured file that go through the Azure Data Factory. Against is the ingest, which is the extract part, right? And then you have the load, which is the store part, and then you have this area is the transformation part. So if you remember with that way, then it will be easier to remember, because most of the architecture, even whatever they have, they always stick to these 3 letters: extract, load, and transform. So yeah, because if you don't have this clear architecture at first, then you will be confused with the sheer amount of services that are available for data in the cloud. So that's why I want to be clear with you guys on that first. Let me see if there is another one. Also, I mentioned about HD Insight in the last time, but then it won't be tested. So that's a very good part. And again, I was saying about cold pad and hot pad. Remember, when I say this, I was talking about lambda architecture. Sid just tell me this afternoon that there will be no testing on the architecture, but still remember this in your mind, because later on when you work in your company, when they talk about big data architecture, there's two so far. That is lambda and kappa. So cold path, you see this is the store and this is the transformation. And again, hot path, this is the extract, right? And then this is the transformation and this is the store. Okay, so that is for the big data architecture. Let's go. So let me see what else that we have here. Okay, so let's go to another path, which is we will talk about the storage path that's available on Azure. Sorry, I think I hear something. Let's see. Ali, I'll mute you a little bit. That's interesting. Okay, let me mute all. Okay, let's work. So let's go to the first part, which is the, well, it's a kind of second part is the loading, right? So today we'll go through the storage options on Azure. Then the next part, because you need to kind of to know like what service that available before you understand like which tool to select for which storage. So that's why I switched the letter ELT a little bit. So on Azure, normally the data, you have two types, right? Structured and unstructured data. You guys remember what is structured and unstructured data, right? Structured data is basically you have something like a table like of data for like Excel. Is a structured data where you have like table and rows, and the things on relational database is structured data. And what unstructured is you have like, for example, document, something like this could be unstructured data. And for structured data, we have relational database, which is SQL database. It support relational database. And all others, you know, there's a mistake, there's a misunderstanding that people don't understand that they think no, SQL cannot support the unstructured data, but it's not true, because Cosmo DB, you can store unstructured data. Data Lake, you can store unstructured data. You can store structured data also. And Azure Storage, even you can store structured data. But the thing is, it's not support for query out of Azure storage. So that is why we have the different data storage, and it depends on the case use scenario. We will select things that's fitable for that case. So let's talk about first on the Azure storage, what it is, and what is the main point of that. So for the general storage in Azure, you guys have two paths. So you guys can see the picture here. There's two paths. One is access via API, and this one is used mainly for virtual machine only. So let's forget about this part because we will consider about this part. So to access the REST API or SDK, they can access through SDK too. Is the ability. I think in our class in the Azure Machine Learning class, there's an exercise where you have to use blob storage to get the model out. So remember, blob storage is belong to Azure Storage, and in Azure Storage there are uh, three main services, which is blob mainly for files, and queue mainly for messages. And when you see about messages, remember about IoT devices, because IoT devices are mainly the one that generate messages, and they generate and send it to you guys through Event Hub, through IoT, and through Kafka, like the picture that I show you. And I'll talk about it again, so don't worry. But remember, queue storage is mainly for IoT. Okay, and the third one is table, which is store semi-structured data only. So you guys see queue, table, and plot. And in here we have file and disk, which is mainly just for Azure Virtual Machine. So for the security part, and remember about security, we will have like a whole session on this, because security is something that a lot of people will be struggling it. So I'll save a whole session on it. So in here, I'll just introduce very briefly on security. So on cloud platform, security is protected by several layers. Remember about the pictures that I showed you guys last time, right? Okay, open that one out. This one. So when you talk about data security, don't just think about masking, don't just think about data encryption. You need to think about network security. What type of network protocols, what type of network setup? Like you need like virtual private network to protect your data, right? Access management is where you like control different access management through Azure AD to allow each one have the control over which data. Threat protection, how you protect people from misuse their rights, right? Information protection is where we talk about data masking, we talk about data encryption in here. And remember, all of the data that's stored in the storage or like database are all encrypted. So you have that information protection of your data. And for let me go back to this slide. So for access management, what we have here is we have Azure Resource Management, where we allow role-based access control to the data. And you will see these services available over and over again through different storage. So you have here Azure Resource Management, right? RBAC. You have here again Azure, let me see. You have here again security, data encryption, Azure Active Directory, RBAC. So get familiar with the keywords, because when you remember the keywords, you will see it over and over again, and you will get familiarized with the architecture. So remember, I just want to repeat again, Azure Resource Management, Role-Based Access Control. This one. Data is encrypted is the number 2, is the second key features. And secure data, you can secure also Azure Active Directory is the third features of some of the services that we have on the Azure platform to secure our data. And okay, so let's go through the ingestion, and remember we will have another session for ingestion and security. So remember, start getting familiar to the services. That is what I want you guys to remember in this session. Start thinking about what Azure services that you have, and start getting familiar with the name on here. And that's why I want to repeat over and over again the name that we have. So Azure Data Factory, remember we see this in this picture. Oops. I think I delete one. Yeah. I delete that one already. Oh, yeah. Okay, so remember Azure Data Factory. Remember, it's like a factory where you process the data. It's for data ingestion, it's for orchestration, and it's a drag and drop tool. And I'll resonate and talk about it more and more and over again so that you guys can remember this keyword. And you have other options like Storage Explorer, AZ Copy Tools, PowerShell, Visual Studio. So these are all of the standard tools to load the data. So I'll go a little bit here. And you can see like what is the difference between all of these tools. Sorry, give me a little bit. Okay. So Microsoft Learn is actually very good with this. But then the thing that I hear about the feedback is that it's very confusing and a loss of service and a little bit difficult on keeping up with the track. So you guys can use it, depends on your need. So up to you guys. But you guys can see here is that they highlight about different tools that you can use for data ingestion. And I also take this structure from them, but then I summarize it a little bit. So they in here, they highlight that if you import a file that's 2 GB, then you need to use file upload feature, right, on PowerShell and Visual Studio. And AZ copy support the maximum size of transform with 1 TB of data, which is automated split data on the 200 gigabytes. So that's it for the data ingestion. And remember, these are the services from Azure. Of course, in the real life, when you work as a data engineer, there are more tools that you can work individually. You don't need to use the Azure services. And what you do with that is that you have the server, and in there you install the tools in, and you process the data. For example, you want to use Nifi, you want to use Airflow, which are the tools for open source. And if you don't want to go open source and you want to purchase an enterprise tool, and there's another tool set for that. For example, Commerce is a tool for data ingestion that you have to pay, right? So remember, these are Microsoft services, but it's not limited to only these tools for data ingestion. Okay, so let's go to Cosmo DB. You guys got the Azure storage, right? 3 types of service: queue, table, blob. That is for Azure storage. It's the cheapest option. And the issue with it is it not support queries, so you cannot query the data out. So if you want to do analytics with just these tools, you have to load them in the data lake to have the query, to have one platform that query them together. But then it's the cheapest option. So let's talk about Cosmo DB. So remember the previous name is Document DB. And why I want to give you guys all of the previous name, because this is the issue with Microsoft that they changed the name. So sometimes in some documents you read it as the document DB and you like, oh, Jen didn't talk to us about this, but in fact it's just another name for Cosmo DB, right? So what is the
They are very unstable.
pardon?
They are very unstable with naming
Yeah,
Microsoft.
yeah. No, they are so crazy. Like they change the name all the time and they change the certificate content all the time. So one year you have Azure 103, and the next year they're like, oh, we update to AZ 104 for the same exam. So the name is changed all the time.
Yes.
The certificate change all the time, and even like the Microsoft Learn and Blog they change a lot too. But then the thing is, if you remember, Azure just come to the picture in the 2018. So they are very young compared to AWS. So hopefully they will have something better to do with the naming. Hopefully in the next year they will be more stable when they gain more customer. So they are still like new in the market and try to figure out like where they should go. So that is their issue. But then I can say for sure that the thing about Azure is that they know how to speak with enterprise people. So AWS and GCP, they still have the startup mentality. So they still think like a startup. While Microsoft, they already have the whole stack to integrate with the enterprise, like Microsoft Excel, you guys use Team, you guys use Dynamic 365. So all of these services are on top of one another to build the whole platform. So that is one of the advantage. And another one is that they have
Yes.
hybrid cloud solutions. Yes.
I mean, this is so true. Yeah. Microsoft is more oriented to the cloud of for enterprise, not like Google and Amazon.
Yeah, because if you see about like Amazon, if you already have the architecture that available on-prem and you go to AWS or you go to GCP, you there's a way to cooperate those services, but it's not a clear path like Amazon with a hybrid clouds. They have very, very good solution for hybrid clouds, and a lot of companies already use the SQL Server license, so it's even easier time to integrate it with their cloud services. And that's also why I pick Azure Cloud to be certificate in, because I see that they have the enterprise mentality instead of startup. Like there's nothing wrong with startup mentality, but if you're gonna work more with enterprise, then Azure is something that really worthwhile for you to invest your time in. So let's sorry, little bit too much on the sharing side. So let's go back on the Cosmo DB. So previous name is Document DB, and when you read on the other documents, when you mention this, because the reason why I know this is today I was looking for the IoT solutions on Azure, and I was looking at Document DB. Like, what I prepared a slide for the class today, and I didn't even mention about this, and so I do some googling, and it turned out it's just Cosmo DB. So normally with Azure database, normally with cloud services, we always have things like scalability. It's very scalable on cloud, high availability. You can have database, you can have your service available with multiple zones, and you can have a secure way to restore, to back up your data when the data is full, when the data is having issues. So those are the features. Those are the non-functional features of cloud. So any platform, any database, when you see about the database on cloud, these always the likely features of that. Of course, like if you have like infrastructure as service, IaaS, then of course you have to do like the scalability on your own. You have to do the availability, the backup servers on your own, but this is the PaaS, which is platform as service, where these things are managed for you. So you always have the scalability and high availability options on this. And remember this, because later on when they ask you on scenarios, they will ask you on these things, like how to scale, how to have your database available, how to secure your data when there's a fallover, thing like that. So remember about this database, they come with API, and with Cosmo DB, there's a lot of API that comes with it, and I want you guys to spend the rest of the time we'll look in here. I'll talk about it a little bit on the comparison between these different API, because in exam, you guys will likely to be tested on the Azure Table API and the core SQL API. This Mongo, Cassandra, Claiming is very advanced, and they won't be tested as much. So let's go and take a look at the API for this class for today. Okay. So again, I want to emphasize again on what NoSQL is. It's a semi-structure, no structure. You can store structured data on it, no issue. And what is NoSQL? They come with four formats, right? We talked about it last week: key value, column, family, document, and graph. And the API that comes with NoSQL in Azure is Table API, Cassandra, SQL, which is the core and the default, MongoDB, and Gremlin. These are the protocols for you to choose when you need a type, when you need to have the option to load and transform the data. Okay, so let's go through it and take a look on this together. So Core SQL is the default API of Azure database. Let me go to MongoDB. So in each of these, you can see MongoDB is belong to the MongoDB protocol. Cassandra is belong to the Cassandra protocol, and Gremlin is belong to the Gremlin protocol. So only Table API and SQL is the services from Azure. So you can see that with the CosmoDB. Oh wait. So CosmoDB with MongoDB. So basically, it's used the MongoDB type of query to extract the data. Similar with Cassandra. So they're using Cassandra query language to query and to partition, to do things on data control on the platform. And we will talk about how these APIs is different in the next slides. But I want you to pay attention to each of these. Okay, so Azure Table API, it provides support for applications that are written for Azure Table Storage. Remember again, Azure Table Storage, it belongs to Azure Storage, and there's three Azure Storage: blob, queue, and table. Remember this picture, right? Blob, queue, and table. So Table APIs is given support for application that is written a table storage. Gremlin graph again. Gremlin graph is the low level all data in CosmoDB, and it's stored in ARS format. And don't worry if you don't get the information on here, because these are not tested. They are just tools available. The most one you will test it is SQL and Table API. So let's go look on here. So if you have a new project being created, the core SQL will be the default one for you to select. And remember, core SQL is the default for the database. So over that, when you have existing MongoDB, Cassandra, Azure table, or Gremlin data, then you need to select one that fitable with the protocols, right? So if you have the MongoDB storage, then you need to select the MongoDB API. If you have the Cassandra, then you need to have the Cassandra API. If you have the table storage, which belongs to Azure storage, then you need to select Azure table. And all other scenarios where you don't have the existing of data, then you use the core SQL. Okay, so here are some of the checklists where you can ask yourself to select the API, and remember there will be likely 2 or 3 questions on this. So the first one, what is your existing database or application? What is it support? So again, if you support MongoDB, you cannot use Cassandra, right? So number one, you need to see what your current API support. API, what is your current application support? If the current support Cassandra, then you need to use Cassandra API on CosmoDB. And number two, if there is the database or your application doesn't have yet doesn't need a defined API yet. And the second one is that you need to ask yourself, does the schema change a lot? Because remember, we are talking about the NoSQL, right? So there is no defined of schema. There's no defined of structured data. So whether your schema change a lot is, for example, JSON data, where you need like new schema, you can easily add it in. So if it change a lot, then core SQL is the choice. Number two, is there important data about relationship between the different items of database? So remember, relationship in metadata, and if you go back to this picture, relationship data is graph because you have the relation between the each node, right? Node A have the relation and node B. So things like social network data, we have a lot of connection together, is the relationship between the data. So so relationship is best stored in graph database. And does your data consist of the key pair values? So I want to highlight with you guys here, Redis is a type of cache services that available within the application only. You cannot use Redis on the public database because the public application, because it's not secure enough. So if your data consider about simple key value pair, then core APIs is the choice for that. Okay, so we will go through each of the scenario here. So for store product catalog, let's see what we have in here. So for storing the catalog, so for Azure table, this API should only use to allow existing app that have the table API access to CosmoDB. Cassandra, it doesn't good choice because schema is unknown and change all the time. Gremlin is also not good choice because it not support graph-based data. MongoDB is a lack support of SQL-like queries. So in here, the last point is core SQL because why it support similar storage to SQL level. So let's go back here. So you see here, you can query the hierarchical JSON document like with SQL-like language. That is the feature of Core SQL API. You guys still with me, or you guys are lost in this?
Yeah, we're with you.
Sorry about this. I take long to go on this because moving on
Does
the
it,
test.
just question,
Yes.
does it mean, for example, inside we has Cosmo DB and yeah, kind just of APIs, so I can interact using the syntax of MongoDB and the Cassandra and Gremlin. Is this that the meaning, or inside the CosmoDB I have a kind of MongoDB or something like this?
Oh,
I mean, it is just an API,
it's the API. So it
or
depends. So it
yeah.
depends on the application that you use. Then you have to choose the one that fitable to the model. So in CosmoDB, you can build it as a MongoDB. You can build it as a Cassandra. So it depends on what you select.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and depends on the application that you use to, So because remember, uh, Azure Cosmo DB is the place where you store the data. So before storing, you need to extract the data from. So the place you extract, whether it support a Cassandra protocol, then you have to select Cassandra. So there's no way that you use a core SQL, right? Yeah. So
Ah,
remember,
okay,
this is
I get
just
it.
a protocol. But then
Mm.
pay attention, likely they will test on Azure Table API and they will test on Core API. So pay attention mainly for that. And remember the core or the SQL API has the advantage over the others. Is number one, the project is new, and number two is that they can query like a traditional SQL. Okay, so we are short in time, so let me move quickly on this. So let's see here, the marketing team want to use additional product recommend while customer use. Okay, let's have 1 minute to read on this. I don't want to just read out and you guys lost on this. Here, let me send you guys the link and we will go through on this together. I just sent you guys the link over chat. So remember, in here we have a graph database. We have where product A is linked to product B. So what is Gremlin? It's a graph query SQL. So core SQL is mainly to show the relationship in the database. And this one is more in graph database. So core SQL is not a good choice. So let me write you guys down in here so that you guys can remember next time. So you have graph data, and you have a lot of metadata, and you will use, I think it's Gremlin. So you have relation like data, and you use core SQL data. You store data in the table storage, that you have to use a table API. Then let's see what the Cassandra and other do. So remember, with Gremlin is Graph API. Okay, so we go to the historical data. remember to pay attention to these case scenarios. From AI 900, I saw things that really similar to these case scenarios. So that's why I want to work with you guys during the class so that you can go through the scenarios. You can ask me questions and we can have the summarize on this case. Okay, so we go to MongoDB now. Okay, so we have one queue here is that is semi-structured. Just paste it here. So we have semi-structured data. So we have to flexible store in different formats. So here reduce downtime with the application. So you see here, they have the application that already use the MongoDB queries. So the best option is use continue to MongoDB API. So number one, you need to check on what application you already have exist. So if the applications or your storage only support Table API or Cassandra, then there's no choice but to use that. So they explain it here. Because of already exist app is MongoDB, so that's why all others is not a good choice. So let's go to Cassandra. So again, we have here is Cassandra API. So again, we have here is that the application is already use Cassandra. So we need to continue to use the Cassandra so that there's avoid like downtime, avoid migration. So avoid failure, avoid you know, like downtime to switch between APIs. So that's why again we need to use Cassandra. Okay, so we have here is Azure Table API. So pay attention to this. So in here, they already use table storage. So in here, they just use key values pair. They don't use CRAP API. They currently deploy in Azure Storage Table. See, you see like again in here, why the other options is not a good choice. It's because the application is already exists in Azure Storage Table Storage. So that's why you need to use Azure Storage Table Storage API. Okay, so we reached to the part where we let's test our quiz on this module on the CosmoDB because it will be a main component on this. So let's have a quick quiz on this. You guys all get the different meaning of the API, right? So basically,
Yeah, I think a little bit.
yes. So basically, if your application already exists in MongoDB in the Cassandra on the table storage, then you need to use these application suitable API. So if the application support MongoDB, it exists, it always use MongoDB, then don't switch it, stick to MongoDB. If your data or your application is kind of semi-structure that can use SQL, then you use SQL. Or if you start a new application, then core SQL will be the base. If you have a graph API, you have the graph type of data, then you use a Gremlin. So let me write to you guys. If the data is available, if the exists application is in MongoDB Cassandra table storage, so use Okay, so I just send you guys a message on there. So you guys all right with this so far? Then we can go through the test, and then we will close our session today. And next week we will learn more on the Azure Data Lake and the SQL database. Okay, awesome. So guys, let's have a quick check on the first one. Knowledge check on here. I'll send you guys. So what is the answer for question 1? You guys can give me in chat.
Maybe MongoDB.
Okay, let's try MongoDB. And the question 2. Okay, so the question 2, Harris tell me is core. Okay, question 3. I haven't read this. I haven't do this yet, so I'll have to see the answer to see if correct also. So what you guys think of question 3? Sales team like the chat features with a fixed number of characters, be simple. The schema is fixed. Exist chat app. Remember, it exists chat app. SQL.
They have SQL already, so maybe Cassandra directly.
Good job. Yes, it's Cassandra. Okay, so the number 2 is graph. Okay, let's see the answer. Okay, so the 3 is right. The 2, let's see on the graph to see if it's graph. Okay, the first one, let's see. Customer can add or remove product any discount. Need to keep the sales team 1 to flexible different kind of required e-commerce that requires support or shopping market. So in here,
I don't know. MongoDB is scalable, but I don't know why they don't.
No, because in here, remember, we don't have the exist application yet. So we can choose any of this besides Gremlin, right? Gremlin is for graph. So
maybe core SQL.
Yes. So let's see on this. Yay, it's correct.
Okay.
So number 3 is Cassandra. Why? Because they already have the Cassandra application here. Number 2 is Gremlin because it's graph, right? So you need to remember this. Gremlin is mainly for graph, where you have the relationship that you see. Graph is about connecting each node together. So when you see things about relationship, then you always need to think about graph. So good job, Ravi.
Thank you.
So number one, you guys got is this type of data is model based by documents. So when you talk about documents, it will be on SQL. So that's it for today, guys. Do you have questions on this? Good job on the getting knowledge on the API for Cosmo DB. I'm sure you will have like a few questions on this. So you guys have questions?
Uh, is the to pass the DP 200, should I pass DP 100 or there is a requirement?
No, there's no pre-requirement. It will be easier time, like it will be easy for you if you pass the DP 900 or the Azure AZ 900 or AZ 104, but it's not a mandatory. So if you have like a very limited voucher, then I would say just save it for DP 200. We will get through it.
Yeah, you mean AZ 900 is the fundamentals, that's it?
Pardon?
AZ, AZ 900 is the Azure fundamentals, isn't it?
Yeah.
If
No, AZ 900. Yeah, let me see. AZ.
Yes, it is the fundamentals one.
It's Azure fundamentals.
yeah,
So you can
I have this one, but I'm not sure what they should they proceed. I'm thinking if I take the II 100 or DP, I'm not sure. Maybe I will go for artificial intelligence.
well, it depends on you. Like if you have still have other vouchers, then you for sure can take more. And I would suggest AZ 900 and DP 100. Not sorry. Let me write it down here. So AZ 900, DP 900. So these two, if you want to have some pre-required knowledge, it's not pre-required, but it will help you better in preparing for this exam. But then again, these cost money, like I think $60 for you guys. So if you don't need it, then you shouldn't use it. You just stick with Microsoft Learn. You can go to the Udemy path that I sent it to you, or you'll attend the session to preparing for it. And I think if you do all of it, for sure you will pass the exam. There's no pre-requirements for Microsoft part on this. But if you want, then you can take the exam.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so
How
don't worry.
about Amazon? Do you have some knowledge in AWS?
Yes, I do. I actually use AWS more than Azure.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
Me
the,
too.
the
I think
reason,
I'm going to use.
yeah, the reason why I
Yeah,
stick
I'm
to Azure
going to
is
use
because they have a lot.
AWS a lot.
Pardon?
Yeah, I'm going to use AWS a lot in the next days.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you have recommendations.
Like in terms of certification.
Maybe I'm interested by learning. Yeah, of course, certifications are also
Well,
interesting.
I'll say this. AWS certification is very expensive. So to get a discount, you get the fundamental ones first, and then when you pass the fundamental one, you will have the discount, I believe, of 50% off. Then you can start taking
Oh,
higher level. So it will be more benefit to you in that way. And there's also a way that you can take like a kind of test on the AWS before the exam, and it costs for like $20. If you pass that like online exam, then only that you should start to take the real test. Yeah, but then
interesting. Thanks.
one good thing about if you're looking for the data engineer field, one good thing is that all of these knowledge is very transferable. So if you learn about the Azure Data Engineer, all of this knowledge will be transferable to AWS as well. So remember, today when I talking about big data architecture, when you talk about like lambda architecture, and when you talk about when I talk about kappa architecture, these are not unique for Azure. You can use the same knowledge in AWS as well. So if I have a choice, I would advise you to learn for the Azure certification yet. First, because number one is it's so much cheaper. It's a 1/3 of the cost for AWS, and number two is that the knowledge is transferable. You can take this knowledge, you go to AWS, likely 40-50% knowledge is already there.
Yes, I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, so
They don't offer vouchers in their events like Microsoft do.
Yeah, I know. They never offer any promotion. They offer like store credit where you can help you like get started with their service though. They never offer any like discounts or certifications.
Oh.
Yeah. So so that's why go for Azure first and go for AWS. It's up to you. I mean, like I don't know how the situation in your company is, so maybe if your company use AWS all the time, then it would be better for you to use AWS, But if not, then go for Azure. Yes.
Yeah, in terms of time, maybe I couldn't find the time to check Azure a lot, so maybe I will concentrate on AWS first of
Sure,
all, and then see.
sure. I understand. Yeah, don't worry about it. But then still pay attention in the foundation knowledge, because I can guarantee with you that 90% of what you have in foundation knowledge will be transferable to AWS, because I use both and I can guarantee on this.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
Yes,
they are all similar, but maybe the naming's a little bit different, but the concept's still the same
yes,
most
concept
of the
is
time.
very similar and very consistency, because these are all about architecture and system and network and security. So these are like has a lot
Exactly.
of overlap in cloud, and even me, like when I read Azure documentation, they are so confusing. So I go to AWS, I read the documentation and I understand too, So that is the plus about data engineer. Okay, so you guys have other questions? Okay, so I guess no more questions. Then have a good day, and I'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you so
you.
much. Bye bye.
Thanks for the session.
Yes, thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you, Jane.
Bye bye. Have a good weekend.